Hello everybody, how are you going? And welcome back to some more TikToks that truly can showcase both the similarities and the differences between Australians and Canadians, and really even just seeing the start here update on the Australian heat, today being even just 40 as we come into December. Whew, as the rest of the world just cools on down, we just ramp on up.
Hey guys, so as you know, I'm Canadian living in Australia. Now, my most asked question is, how are you dealing with the heat? And up until now, it has been the exact same as a Canadian summer.
Right.
This week has been like mid-30s, humidity.
Yeah.
Oh, just air conditioning. I'm sweating as we're speaking. But look at this view. Beautiful.
Fair enough.
Stunning.
It's hot though. All right. It's hot.
There we go.
Hey guys, so
Just
as you know,
like that. Now, of course, that is going to be depending on where he is from, is what his experience is going to be compared to. But at the same time, I feel like a lot of people are going to have a certain perspective. If you were living in Canada, you know how hot and you know how cold it gets, and you kind of go from there. Where if he's going 35 and humid, it's not cold. You can't be saying, oh, well, sure, some places get up to 40 and that's fine. With 35 and humid, maybe, I don't know, 80% humidity like it has been the last few days, you'd be sweating. You'd be sweating. Like today's, let's say 40, but I think it's only about 30% humidity. So it makes a big difference, especially when I read in the description that it was apparently 34 degrees. Now, I would love to know the humidity, because maybe humidity for him, he's thinking like it's 100, but it's actually 60, whatever it may be. I don't know where he is. If you're going to be in Queensland, that's going to be a lot of humidity. And especially, I mean, he is undercover, but at the same time, he is also near a water source. So I can only imagine it's going to be humid, but cooler than a lot of the rest of Australia. You know, some places just bake all year round. And so maybe he has to get out a little bit more, or maybe the Canadians just aren't truly ready for what Australia can throw at them.
Welcome to part 2.
Oh, here we go.
So, a duvet.
Oh,
Duna.
yep, a doona.
Right? Duna. It's a duvet. Duna. A swimsuit. Swimmers or
Where do you
togs.
start?
Togs? Yeah.
Togs.
Like a shoe.
There's a few though. Swimsuit, bathers is even one that people do say, pretty rare, but yeah, swimmers is going to surely be, I think, the more common one. It's hard to say. I'm sure some families and some demographics say swimmers and some say togs, but it is all in there. And even just the duvet, I remember the weirdest thing that caught me off guard was the fact that I believe that New Zealand calls it a duvet, when Australia calls it a doona, and I believe that we're the only one that calls it a doona. And I just feel like a lot of New Zealand and Australia is shared. And so for them to be just going back to a lot of the world and just calling it a duvet, very weird to me.
A tank top. A singlet.
That's a singlet, yeah.
Okay.
No
That's
way.
Cute. Parchment paper. Baking paper.
Baking
you
paper.
bake with
You're
it.
baking with it.
Yeah.
So it would be called baking paper.
Why is it called parchment? Was it originally parchment paper? Was that the thing that they were using in form of baking paper, and then eventually it developed its own product, being the waxy paper and everything that we know today, and it's kind of tear off form? But was it originally parchment paper and they never evolved it? Meanwhile, Australia being a newer country, maybe we just got baking paper straight off the bat. I have no idea. But to still be calling it parchment paper just seems so strange. I mean, I guess at least there isn't going to be too much confusion, as no one's really going to be using parchment paper for writing on anymore. Good luck to you. But otherwise, it must have been a weird rollover period.
A grilled cheese. It's specifically a toasted sandwich.
It's a toasty.
That's exactly what it is.
Yeah. It's not, I mean, you're not grilling cheese. You're grilling cheese between bread, but you're not grilling the cheese. You're warming the cheese with the radiant heat from the bread. That's what you're doing. So you're not actually grilling anything in that department. And also, a lot of sandwich presses, I feel like in Australia, don't have grills. I mean, you can get grills, but if you're just going straight plates, I'd feel like they are going to be more of a toasted look. And then also, a grilled cheese is very unidimensional. What is it, a grilled cheese and tomato or ham, or do you just say grilled cheese for everything? Because a toasty, you can have a ham and cheese toasty, you can have a cheese and tomato toasty, you can have a chicken toasty, you can have a chicken and cheese toasty, you can have so many different things, and it covers all bases. You don't have to be saying it's a grilled cheese but not without the cheese and with chicken and whatever else you could be possibly throwing in there.
So the other day, I said my phone's flat. Canadians don't say that.
dead.
What?
Your phone's dead.
I mean, we say that
phone's
too,
dead.
but I
Or
thought,
dying.
like, who would have thought that is not a normal word that everyone says? Like, my phone's flat.
No.
I mean,
Okay,
your phone
tell
is flat,
everyone what
most likely.
Canadians say for a chicken palmy.
Chicken parmesan?
Yes. We say chicken parmigiana.
Jana?
Can't we call it just a palmy?
No way.
Yeah, chicken parm is what I'd say.
Chicken
Shopping centre.
parm? ugh. I don't really want a chicken palm, if I'm honest. I mean, a chicken palmy with an extra eye makes all the difference, but a chicken palm, I mean, now I'm thinking of a chicken palm tree, but that's not a thing either. Chicken certainly doesn't grow on trees, but to be thinking of a chicken palm like a chicken hand's palm in the form of what a chicken palmy is, no thanks. I'm right, I'll skip that one. And then especially going back to the phone is flat, if you confuse someone with that and they just have no idea what you're talking about, I feel like that's on them. But if you just say it and it takes them a second going, wait, what? What do you mean your phone is, oh, your phone's dead? Then that's completely on you going, oh, yeah, I guess so. My phone is most likely these days, if your phone is not flat, that is very, 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 very peculiar. I think every single phone with the screen is going to be flat. But at the same time, your phone can also be flat with battery. Flat line, I guess it's what it's coming from, like a heartbeat, you've flatlined, but you've flatlined your phone. There is also going to be a whole bundle of people that say my phone is out and my phone is, flat, my phone is dead. There's a few different ones that you could throw in there and everyone should be able to understand what you're talking about. As long as your phone isn't just on and working, they can work out the rest.
Have you ever wondered if there's a difference
What's
between
it gonna
Australian
be?
chocolate and Canadian chocolate?
chocolate.
Because
Here
we're
we
about
go.
to
Surely the-
find out.
So here we have the Canadian version and the Australian version.
So different.
The Canadian version and the Australian version.
No. There is no such thing as a Canadian Tim Tam. You can import them all you want, enjoy them as much as you want. But to actually call it a Canadian Tim Tam, you can get out of here. There is no way that Canada can be claiming to have an Australian Tim Tam. It's not happening. Even if they were produced in Canada, it's not a Canadian object. It's impossible to believe. There is no substitute, as it says on the package, for an Arnott's Australian Tim Tam. You can rip off the recipe. There's no Nanaimo bars that are made in Australia. You would never let that happen. And so as Australian cannot sit here and let the Tim Tam get desecrated like it is and be called a Canadian product. That is outrageous. I'll let you have the chocolate, but not that.
Aussie. And also there's always French on everything that is Canadian. So
No.
we're going to do a taste test. Elliot is going to pass me those options.
If it
and I'm going to
wins-
see if I can taste the difference.
First one's a Tim Tam.
Alrighty. Option one.
Ooh, let me just see. That looks... they've stored them in the fridge, though.
Yum.
All right.
I
Number two.
don't know how I feel about that. Ooh, it's a different color. Ooh, wait. Let me just try and dissect this. I feel like the first one, on immediate visual instances, it looked like a Canadian one because the color was off, but then it was refrigerated, which does throw the color off. But then with the next one, the shape looked wrong to me.
Yum.
I don't know.
Number two.
That one, it's too hard to tell. What would it be? I feel like that one's not refrigerated, or unless the color is completely different. I don't get it. Nah, that has to be. Oh, I'm so curious to see.
Which
what
one
it's
did you
going
like
to be.
better, and which one do you think was Canadian?
Please don't let us
I think
down.
option one is Canadian
That's what I thought.
and option two is Australian. I prefer option two.
Oh,
It's not as sweet.
Option two was Canadian.
Really?
two.
Oh my god, that's
Oh
so funny.
no. Oh god. I mean, she's probably just playing up to the camera. That's what I'm going to be believing in my mind. But I just thought that the first one, the color looked off, but that was because it was in the fridge like a crazy person. I mean, unless it's 40 degrees, then you kind of have to do it because you don't have any options. But then the second one, it was the shape that did it. The shape was what was throwing me off, and it didn't look true. So I had a rock and a hard place that I was stuck between. But then the fact that she says the taste is better because there's less sweet, I guess that is going to come down to personal preference, because I feel as though if you were going after a Tim Tam, you kind of want the sweetness, but I guess things can be overly
did
sweet.
them really close
Hopefully
together,
we can
but
just now
they're
bring it back
very-
with the chocolate though.
Very, very similar.
Yeah.
Next up, we have
Come on.
Cadbury Hazelnut.
Please.
First up, there you go.
I don't know if I've ever had this.
And
That's one.
second up. All right.
What's it gonna be? I wonder what the
Oh,
ingredients.
I know, it's fine.
Okay.
Okay.
Yum.
Give her.
Give her.
Oh my god.
All right.
They're so similar.
Ooh.
You can open your eye. What do you feel? What do you think? What was the first one? And which one do you
I
like better?
wouldn't put two
I
Australian
reckon
products first.
option
would they?
one is Australian
Okay.
and option two is
Again?
Canadian, and they were both really good. I can't.
Perfect. Well, you got that one right.
Really?
Hey,
Yes!
there we go. I mean, at least she goes, they're both really good, but I'm still a little bit heartbroken by the first one. And the fact that we weren't able just to claw that one back. If she went, oh, the Australian chocolate's so much better, then at least it would be a fair share. And I would still love to know what the difference in ingredients are and even manufacturing. And even the fact that it didn't look like the second Tim Tam had been in the fridge, or at least she didn't leave any kind of finger moisture or lack of moisture on the Tim Tam. And so I'm wondering, that would definitely play into it. And so surely we can just get better. We have to be better. It's not fair.
One lesson I just learned recently is the saying out in the boonies. This is the same as an Aussie going like, oh, they live out in the sticks or out in whoop whoop somewhere. That's what we call the boonies. It's the same. I love it.
What is the boonies? I mean, I can understand what the boonies is. It makes a lot of sense. And I think even without her explaining it to me, I could probably dissect and understand what someone's talking about. But where does it come from? Because out in the sticks, I can understand the root of that. Like, you're literally living, well, not in your house, not in the city where there's concrete and sandstone and everything like that. You live out in the sticks. Out in whoop whoop, that's a bit more of a made up saying, but out in the boonies sounds more real. Like it's a place, like it's a thing, a tangible something that you can actually go and live in. Like the rocky part of somewhere. I don't know. It just sounds like more of a place than it's been colloquially changed to mean just out in the middle of nowhere.
Here is part 2 from an Aussie that lives in Canada of some things that happen in a Canadian winter that I had no idea about. Snowflakes. So I posted on Instagram one day that these looked like actual snowflakes and all of the Aussies lost their mind. Sometimes snow just looks like a little white ball, but just in case you didn't know, snow can actually look like a snowflake. Here is part 2 from...
I don't know how I feel about that because they do look very, very pretty, but of course snow can actually look like an ice flake because that's exactly where the ice flake shape came from. I don't know how that would ever be misconstrued any other way. If you were going to be looking at an ice flake, that's exactly what you were going to be expecting. And of course it takes a series of events to be even getting to that, but no one's just going, yeah, see this little white ball of kind of nothingness and all bundled up ice? I think it should actually look like this beautiful structure that has never been repeated and things like that. No, it is going to be coming from nature. Nature is incredibly beautiful in what it can create, and we didn't just dream it up out of nowhere. And so it is cool. Yeah, it's awesome because we don't really see snow for starters, and then to be seeing it so perfect in this form, that's awesome. But I'm a little bit disappointed in a lot of people that are surprised by the fact that a snowflake looks like a snowflake.
Okay, so as somebody who grew up partially in Australia, partially in Canada, I want to talk about the differences that I noticed when I first went to Australia for the first time. These are also from a kid's perspective. Like, I was 11 when I first
perfect
went.
though.
Numero uno is I loved my very Canadian roots sweatshirt that just said roots right across the front of it. It meant something very different there and was not appropriate
Funnily
for me
enough.
to be wearing, especially at that age. So
Yeah.
don't wear your roots sweatshirts.
I mean, maybe you can, but just know what it means at least. If you're saying I'm roots, or I don't really know what else it would mean. Is it a hockey team? I don't know. I really don't know what roots are, but I know what roots are, and I know what roots could mean. But for an 11-year-old, like she said, maybe a little bit too forward, a little bit too out there, and a little bit inappropriate for so many different occasions. Don't just be wearing that thing around unless you truly know what you're really kind of saying there.
Okay, this might have changed, but back in the day, they did not celebrate Halloween in Australia, especially like with trick-or-treating. So when I rocked on up to my neighbors' houses on Halloween, they were perplexed, to say the least. But they were still lovely and did their best to find me something in the house that I might enjoy.
Yeah.
I loved lemonade, and going to restaurants, I would often try and order it as a kid. I did that in Australia, and it came out, and it was Sprite. I think it was like the third time I tried to order it that I realized that they call Sprite lemonade. It's not what I thought.
Wait, what are you expecting? I'm confused there. Are you expecting a lemonade? Are you expecting a Sprite? Are you expecting a Fanta? Are you expecting a lemony drink? Are you expecting squeezed lemon? I don't know what you're actually after there. Maybe you're after what you got, but you just don't know the name of it, or I don't know what you're really going for. And then with trick-or-treating, I mean, she did say she was 11, and so it's been a little while since she was originally over here, and so things have changed. It is slowly, I feel like, growing in popularity, but there is still a lot of mixed feeling. There is also a lot of resentment going, I don't want your North American traditions over here. There is a lot of that going on. I don't know, it's a bit of a mixture. You walk down the street, 40, 50, 60, depending on the street, % of people might be celebrating it, might have something on the front. If someone doesn't have something out the front, be it like a pumpkin or a spiderwebby thing, just skip it. There's no point going. No one cares if you're just not a part of it. But people do often do it. It's just harder to find places in between. You're not going from house to house to house to house to house. You're going from house to maybe another street and then over and back around again. And it's not that big of a deal. Kids aren't just waiting for it as much as I'm sure that they are in North America.
Okay, this has probably
Basic
changed
cable?
because this was many moons
What's
ago. But
basic
back in the
cable?
day, basic cable in Canada was like 75 channels, so it was a pretty good selection. In Australia, basic cable was like 5 channels. It was hardly anything, so basically you got what you got.
I still don't know what cable is. Is cable like Foxtel? Is cable free to air? Is cable, I mean, these days I'm sure it's streaming. What is cable? Because I feel like people pay for cable. Is that right? As I feel as though I've heard of people stealing cable, and so I don't know how you would steal or why you would steal free to air. And then in that regard, if you are talking about like a Foxtel type situation, which I believe is the only one that Australia has ever had, is Foxtel, and I guess that's waning now with different options being streaming services, but then how are you stealing that? And also, it doesn't just have 5 channels. Like Foxtel has like, I don't know, 900, doesn't it? 999 different selections, and then this and that. I have no idea. I do not have enough information, but that is something that has always perplexed me. Is cable free to air TV, or is it paid for? Because it doesn't make sense what she just said. And then sushi rolls.
Okay, this
I'll
is a
get
funny
behind
one.
that.
But in Australia, especially when you're like in a mall, if you go to one of the, like the
shopping
sushi
center?
counters, they have sushi in these like small rolls, and so you get it in a little bag and you can like eat it as you go. Anyways, I can't describe it, but I loved them so much. They still don't have them here that I know of. Now we have closest that you could get is a hand roll or like a sushi burrito, but neither are the same thing. These are like if they get the roll, but they don't cut it into little pieces before. They just give it to you as like a cylinder. I don't know if this makes any sense, but I was absolutely obsessed with these.
You mean exactly how it's made prior to be cutting? Yes, they just give you the whole roll as though you're getting, depending on how many you cut it into, but 4 or 5 or 6 pieces of smaller. Like, you know, if you were cutting the whole roll down, you would get maybe 6 pieces of 10 or 12 mil, where this is just the whole roll. Cut in half, I guess, technically is what they're doing, as one half is always going to be flush and one half is always going to be the end. And that is everywhere. It's actually relatively cheap as well, I've heard, in comparison to a lot of other places. You might get, I mean, maybe 10 years ago, you could get 4 rolls for $10 or $11. Maybe now you're looking for 4 rolls for maybe $14 or $15, somewhere along those lines. And you get teriyaki chicken and avocado, or salmon and avocado, cucumber, whatever you want, tuna, it's all there. And it's just fantastic. They're nice and cool. Kids love them after school. They were just so good and relatively healthy. You know, it's not going to Macca's and getting a frosted flake and things like that. No, you can just get a sushi roll and everyone really likes it. I mean, there's even, like I said, the chicken option really covers a lot of different bases for kids. So to be hearing that Canada, and I can only presume North America and probably the rest of the world, is still lacking this perfect option for so many people, I don't really get it. And I don't really get what she was talking about originally when she said there was a sushi burrito, but there was also...
Now we have
what?
Closest that you could get is a hand roll or like a...
What's a hand roll? Because that's exactly what they're marketed as in Australia. Yes, you get hand rolls. I don't know. I mean, you can get the triangular pyramid ones, but that's not the same. What is she talking about with a hand roll being different to what we've got? Because they're literally called hand rolls.
One of their favorite pastimes is trolling tourists. Like, you know how...
I was fully caught out by this when I first moved to Australia, so I found this video really funny and validating that it wasn't just like something that happened to me, because people would say things that just sounded very outlandish, and I'd just be like, okay, all right, whatever. Like, as if you're just gonna argue. Like, I don't know, I'm not from here. And then later, like, I don't know, days later, like, ha ha ha, like, you believe that, you're so gullible. Like, what am I going to say? What am I going to argue with you? Like, of course not. And I really did think this was...
In a respectful way, you might as well argue. If you can give a little bit of banter back, you'll get some serious street cred. But it is because Australia is such an isolated and I guess so unknown kind of place, a scary place for a lot of people, being the poisonous snakes and the spiders that are always out to get you, the drop bears that just fall from the sky, everything can and will kill you if you're not careful. But by the same metric, you just got to play with the tourists a little bit. It's just a natural order of things. If they don't know, just poke them a little bit, see what happens. They might be scared, they might be running with it. It'll all be fun and games a few days later. Like they said, you just got to run with it.
So I'm back in Canada for a bit, and here are some of the main things I noticed between Canadian versus Australian grocery stores. For reference, I'm a Canadian living in Australia. First of all, I forgot how huge everything is. That pack of Lay's is pretty big. So are the cereal boxes. All the family-sized things just were a little bit of a reverse culture shock for me, because I just forgot how huge stuff is. These teas were so big.
$1.50. Wait, I'm just trying to see how big are these? Well, how big was the cereal? So, I mean, you got French on it, but no, I don't see how big it is. My goodness, no wonder it's a reverse
teas
culture
were so
shock.
big. Second, I forgot that they serve alcohol at Canadian grocery stores. You don't get alcohol at Australian grocery stores.
Yeah, basically.
You have to go to a separate liquor store. Well, there's still liquor stores in Canada, but yeah, you just don't get liquor or beer at an Australian grocery store.
Yeah, no.
Also, what the hell? I didn't know Arizona iced tea made hard Arizona iced tea. I really need to try this.
Jeez,
Lastly,
I'm sure that goes
milk
crazy.
bags. I forgot milk bags were a thing. Definitely don't have those in Australia.
No, and there's a reason for that. And I feel like nowhere else in the world has ever thought to adopt that entire thing. There's no way everyone's going, yeah, you know those milk bags and you know all these things in here. You know, we've got this plastic bottly thing, but I think that we just need to be putting it in a bag instead, so then you can put the plastic bag in a plastic bottle and then leave it open, not be able to close it, and then put it in the fridge. Like, it's such a backwards mentality to me. That one, I understand if people want to be saying it's somehow less plastic, even though you're bagging a bag, you're bagging 1 liter bags in a bag, which doesn't make any sense. So then you have all the mini plastics instead of more PET plastics. It doesn't make sense. But just the whole leaving it open, not being able to close the milk jug, and having problems where it falls out. How much milk is spilt and wasted every year in Canada from both tourists and domestics and locals alike, just going, oh, whoops, I didn't tap it the perfect amount of times on the table, and so the entire bag just fell out. How much milk? It must be thousands and thousands of liters just by the wayside because it's just not in a jug. And yeah, everything else checks out. Size, alcohol in stores compared to not in stores. There are some Australian stores, like let's say Aldi, they in some places do have their license to be serving it, but then realistically it's never a drama because you go out, Woolies or Coles or IGA, you turn left or right, and there's basically one right there is pretty much how they set themselves up because they own competitors or one other branches that do act as a liquor store as well, or an alcohol store or a bottle or whatever you want to be calling it. But the milk in the bags, please no one adopt this. I understand if you just want to be keeping your ways, but I don't think anyone needs to be adopting this.
We're going into Costco. So I didn't actually realize you could use your Canadian Costco card in Australia and all over the world.
Really?
So cool. So thank you, Mom, for the card. And George wanted the stocking, so we compromised and got the stocking. Found this massive peanut butter, had to take it home. Found these massive tubs of Vegemite. George keeps bugging for me to try it again.
Fair enough.
Look, there's probably going to be a video coming.
It's been 2 months and Coke is on special, yet Maddie still cannot believe the price of it here. Since Maddie has been here, he has lived off Nutri-Grain. I need to get this pack so we can try something different.
Whoa.
Size my torso.
Whoa, 1.2 kilos of cereal? That's so much cereal.
Alright.
Whoa. That's a big
These are as
bag
close
of
to
stuff.
McDonald's nuggets as you can.
Holy moly.
They slap, as the kids say.
Fair enough.
Check out the freaking size of this bear. $400.
$400.
Massive, literally take up our whole living room. Look at
Fair
these
enough.
cool Aussie Christmas decorations. We've got a wombat, and every time we see a wombat, George sings, ooey gooey.
Wombat stew!
Ooey gooey, wombat stew. Look at that fan. We need one. We don't need this, a fireplace. It's 30-something degrees today.
Yep.
No thanks.
Now, I'm trying to convince Maddie that we should get this massage chair for my dad for Christmas. Do we have $2,000? Absolutely not.
You don't need it.
What a
No
good
one needs
gift.
that. Why does Costco stock this stuff? I guess that's their entire brand, is to have everything besides, I guess, weaponry in Australia. But everything that we're seeing, I mean, the Vegemite tubs sounds like an efficient use of space. But then a giant stocking And the giant cereal, I just want to know how much cheaper is it when you're buying in bulk like this? And then even for them to be saying that the Coke is expensive, I believe it was $23 for 24 cans. Is that a lot? Surely that's not a lot. Whatever it was, it didn't seem like an outrageous price, and he's still outraged by it, and it's on sale. However, I think the coolest thing about this entire thing was the fact that he could use his Canadian Costco card in Australia, and I guess that just means that you can use it worldwide, which is an awesome feature considering, I mean, there aren't too many Costco's in Australia, but I do know a few people that do have them, and I believe it's a membership, is that right? Like you pay like $100 and then that gets you entry, and then that's how the entire system works. It's something like that. And I guess if you get access to a whole bundle of things that other people don't, there's a certain kind of allure in that regard. But at the same time, if you are spending $100, you better be going there a lot to be getting your money's worth. There's $100 on top of savings that you're already getting, but then you're just kind of playing this weird balancing game of needing to buy lots of stuff. And I guess that's what they're in the market for, selling lots of stuff, big and small, big teddies, little tellies, big stockings, whatever it may be, you got it all there. And it's just, it's a place of mystery and wonder that I've never been, and I guess maybe eventually I will, if this is some of the stuff that we need to be getting, if nothing else, just for that Vegemite, just to be really raking it in.